What up, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to another episode of Honda Street Garage. In this episode, we're going to be putting the 6th gear into the Element transmission. Now, I realized that I needed to explain why we were doing this in the first place, why put a 6th gear in the Element transmission. Also explain that the K24 that we put into the Element was just a replacement engine, basically a K24A4, so it was the same amount of power as the original engine. If you were going to put a K24A2, aka a Tsx Type S motor, that would require going K-Pro. Now, Seth actually lives in Florida, I live in South Carolina, and Seth actually drove up to South Carolina to do the swap and so that I could do the trans. Mostly what Seth does is he uses the car for work, so he does a lot of traveling on the highway. He really needed his Element to be reliable, functional, as he has a baby on the way. The whole point was to try to make him save money, so he just went ahead and put a new engine in, and then put the 6th gear into the transmission. Now, why would we put the 6th gear into the transmission? I'm going to show you a chart here that basically explains the gear ratios. In fact, the Element actually has nearly identical gear ratios as a JDM Type R transmission with a 4.7 final drive. So in 5th gear at 80 miles an hour, it turns about 4,200, 4,300 RPM, depending on what tire size that you have. Having a 6th gear on the highway for long highway trips would really be ideal. You know, he's able to save a lot of gas. He actually added about 60 miles, I think, to a full tank of gas. So at the end of the video, you're going to see him do some testing on the transmission, because we were able to put the engine and transmission all together, and then a day and a half later, he drove 6.5 hours back down to Florida. Now, I wasn't able to go into a lot of what gear we put in there. We actually used all the pieces from the TSX transmission. We use a Tsx 6th gear, and you'll see that most of this, and the reason why we did this was because there's a lot of write-ups for the Elements. There's kind of a group for people that own manual Elements, how they would really like to put a 6th gear in. So that's what this video is basically for. There's a link in the description of the original article where you can get all the details and all the part numbers for everything that you'll need if you are looking into doing this 6th gear swap. And thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you at the end. All right, so here's the trans. I've got to get the casing off. I'm going to pull these detents out, 1, 2, 3. I'm going to pull the shift selector out, and then all the 12mm bolts that are holding the casing together. And then, of course, this big guy right here. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Okay, I've removed the 3 detents, and there's 3 little ball bearings that sit in here. Those are what keep it in gear. Now I've removed this guy right here, and then the 4 10mm that hold this in. So now we got to kind of, there's a couple of, there we go. This should slide out, just like that. Alright, now we need to get the bolts out to take the rest of the casing off. I also removed the 14mm bolt right here, which is reverse. You must disconnect that to get the casing off. Okay, now I have all the bolts out, all the way around. And the shift selector pulled out. Now we need to spread that little lock ring apart and then pry on the case, and it should come off. So pry it apart like that. Should lift straight off. Okay. Alright, so here we go. The bearing's stuck up in there, but I'll get that.
Ready?
Yep. Who knows? It's like that with some other stuff. Ooh, so we found that out. This bolt is reverse threaded. Alright, cool. So you can see here where the 6th gear would go. There's a spacer here, and just a roller here and here. Now in that plastic bag over there, we've got all the pieces we need. So we'll probably have to take this fork off, and I'll show you that when I get to it. Okay, so I've lifted the gears out. I've removed the 2 pieces, these little 2 black pieces right there, that hold reverse in. It's 2 10mm bolts here and here, so 4 10mm bolts, and then all the gears and shift forks lift out. You've seen other videos before. So now what we're going to do is take this shift fork, set it here, take this one, set it here, this one, we're going to be replacing, I believe. So now what we're going to do is take this and sit it down in here and work on that. Now this should, see, everything sits down in there. From the synchro up, should lift right off. And that's what we should be left with. Okay, so we got the hub ring pushed all the way down. As you can see, it's lined up with these little teeth right here, these little teeth. So now we take the hub ring and put it over it and line these teeth up. So you got two tall teeth right there. That should match up there. Alright, so we got the tall teeth. Locks 5th gear in. Now what we do is we use the synchro that was here before. Place it down over into the little grooves. See how they fit in the slots right there. Okay. Now we've got our little collar. Go down. Needle bearing. Then 6th gear should slide over, sit right down on it. Then we need our main bearing, and that goes on top, slides down, and hopefully everything should be good. Now the way to test this, so that's 6th gear. 5th, neutral, 6th. Alright, okay, so this thing is reverse threaded, keep that in mind. So this is going to come out, sit to the side. Now we've got to get this and this ring off. We finally got this bearing off. And it also has a washer. You can definitely tell, why didn't they make these 6B from the factory? All it has is a collar. You just lift off. Take the 6th gear. Put it on. I'm going to have to tap that down on there and grease the splines a little bit. But yeah, I'm going to have to tap it down and spin it. Basically, to get that off, I had to tap it with a hammer while spinning it very lightly. It took a minute, but it did come off. So what I'm going to do now is just tap this down, tap the bearing back on top of it, and then put the nut back on. And it should be good to go. Now I hammered the gear on there. I use the collar as a little tool to kind of beat it on there. Now I've got to place the washer and the bearing on. I'm going to have to do the same thing. I'm going to have to tap it on to get it to go down. Gucci. And that's it. Okay, so I had just had Seth help me actually set all the gears in here with the shift forks. Now you actually have to get a new shift fork with a reverse lever here. So if you see, this here is actually extra and moves independently for reverse. The old shift fork has this piece pinned to it. So to choose reverse, it's basically like going into 6th gear almost. So now that this is here, this extra slider goes on top of the fork. Some people actually take this pin out and remove it, but we opted to go for a brand new piece for this. And you can see we used, this is the part number for that, and for the shift fork. Okay, and that's these two pieces, and then it's much easier to have a friend help you put all these together and then set them back in. I actually have another K-series video in my video list. I'll put a link in the description, as well as a link to a write-up on how to do all this. So it gives you all the part numbers and exactly how to do this, and you can use this just as a guide to see how it's done. Now, of course, we're going to go ahead and put reverse back in and double check everything so we can get the casing back on. Of course, we're going to have to peel all this original Honda Bond off and lay new, fresh Honda Bond on it. Now, if you feel stressed at all about doing this, trust me, I know how you feel. Okay, so I've got all the reverse pieces in. Everything is looking good, and now it's time to put some Honda Bond on this thing and seal it up. Okay, now I've put a whole fresh seal of Honda Bond on this thing. I'm going to close this thing up. See the plastic pieces in here. Just going to drop it on top. Okay, I've dropped it on top, and I'm just going to wiggle it down. Okay, now that it's started to shut, you'll start to see this thing. And what we need to do is, as we close it, we need to spread this thing open. So I'm going to have someone come over here, open it, push the casing down, and it should lock into place. Okay, so you see that's spread open and it's pushed all the way down. I have the casing closed almost. I've just got to run all these 12mm bolts down. Okay, we have all the bolts tightened and the shaft is locked in. It should look like that. Yeah.
How the viewer is that?
Seth thinks I broke the...
Because you laid the transmission on. I watched you do it.
I didn't. That's how it fell out, because it wasn't locked in ever. Alright, so now we're going to tighten this up. Alright, we got that tight. Now just snug. Now another trick here. You have to put the reverse bolt in here. You got to line it up. Now see, the bolt won't go in because we have to spin and line it up. I need like a very thin screwdriver. Oh, there it goes. Okay, so here's the shift selector system. We have to take this thing apart. 12mm bolt out. Comes out. Oop, the spring come out. There's a washer there. Don't lose that. Okay. Now, these pieces will come off. All right. So now we need to replace these pieces. Okay. So I have the shifter select lever here, all working together. Transmission's all working together. When you put the speed sensor in, there's a little tiny spacer in between the 10mm bolt and the sensor. Do not forget that, or the sensor will touch the gear, and that's not good. Everything else seems to be checking out for now. Now this is a first for me as far as going with the 6-speed transmission. There are other people that have reportedly done it without having any issues. We didn't show you the shift selector. I forgot to show you, but basically what you do is you follow the same procedure as what any 6-speed manual shift selector, how it goes together. Kind of ran into an issue there for a minute, so we had to take care of it because we've got to get this done. And I will show you a screenshot of the order in which the shift selector should go together, and also, again, there will be a link in the description of all the part numbers that you would need for this and everything that you'll need. Now, some of the footage that I didn't get to do because we were in a rush to try to finish the transmission is the actual gear shift selector. Now, there will be no reverse lockout with this setup, so you have to be very careful, and it makes 5th gear and 6th gear feel a little different without that lockout. Now, you can actually opt to just buy a 6-speed shift selector and just drop it right in. It does have the reverse lockout solenoid on it, and you could probably wire it up to a switch yourself, or have Hondata and or K-Tuner and apply the reverse lockout. So that's the only thing that I really didn't get to put too much in the video, but I will put a screenshot of how the shift selector is supposed to go.
Alright, I've been driving it for 5 hours. It's been a couple days since we finished that swap. With the addition of the 6th gear, I've gotten an extra 60 miles out of the tank so far. Not too bad. I will show you what it's like. I don't know what Mark did, but my brake light's on now all the time. even when I put it down. But that's marked for you, you know. So we got first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, reverse. Really, fifth is the harder one to get into for whatever reason. About to get on the highway, getting back on 95. Been driving for 5.5 hours-ish. I'm in second gear right now. Third. Fourth. Fifth. Wait for it.
Do it! Do it! Come on, man! Do it now!
Sixth gear. In and element. Alright. It's a very nice, smooth ride.
So that was pretty much it for the whole video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Click subscribe if you haven't already. Click like if you like this video. I've got links in the description for the original article, like I said before, as well as to my merch, as well as Patreon if you want to help support the channel, if you like seeing cool stuff like this. So I want to thank each and every one of you out there for continuing to support the channel, keeping up with me, because I know it's been a little bit difficult lately, because right now, as I said, the shop is absolutely stuffed with things, but this actually means there's a bunch of projects going on, and finally we're going to be getting on some projects for this thing. So I finally got a wiring solution that is coming up for the EJ1. So stay tuned for all that jazz and more. I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace out and keep living your dreams.